This is an educational video discussing the different kinds of intelligences that exercises the fair use policy. The current societal standard for measuring intelligence is the IQ test. But is that really an accurate measure of the intelligence of a human being? These are the kinds of questions on an IQ test that measure the intelligence of a human being. Take some time now to think of the answers. You don't have to. However, understand your intelligence is measured by your ability to know answers to questions like these by society. The first question has three symbols where the shaded area shifts clockwise. Therefore, if you chose B, you are correct. In the second example, you see when 3 times 3 equals 12, you're adding 3. And with the 4s, you multiply and add 4. With the 5s, you multiply, you add 5. Therefore, with the 8s, you multiply to get 64, and you add 8 to get 72. If you got the answers correct, that's cool. But if you got the answers wrong, you are not dumb. Do not let society tell you this, and allow me to explain further. I categorize the first intelligence as PSQ, being pattern symbol quota. The intelligence on being able to identify the relationship between patterns and symbols and how they relate towards each other. IQ tests do more than PSQ, but I split up the intelligences as I will explain moving forward. KQ is your kinetic quota, the intelligence on knowing how to move the body in an optimal way to perform in terms of strength, agility, endurance, speed, and efficiency. As you watch these people perform with their bodies in an optimal manner, you will come to the understanding that they have a very high kinetic intelligence, being able to perform very, very difficult bodily movements.
Insane! How do you make that catch?
These are all examples of very, very high kinetic intelligence.
He flipped it up to himself and then into the back of the net.
Now, as you're watching these performances, take a moment to think about if these people were doing IQ tests, for example, and they only scored, let's say, a 60 on an IQ test, do you think that they would be dumb when they can do things like this? Now, not just athletic performances are example of kinetics intelligence. As you can see here, this woman doing yoga has a very high kinetic intelligence in the way she is able to perform with her body in an optimal manner. And here you can see an example of dancing, which is another example of a high kinetic intelligence, as what is being done here is very difficult to do and requires a very high kinetic intelligence to be able to perform. As we go through the video, you're going to notice how some of these intelligences are also affected by others. This is actually a video of me where I'm skipping a frisbee off the ground into a basketball hoop. It is no easy task, let me tell you. LQ, logical quota, the intelligence on being able to decipher from observation how an action being observed becomes recognizable on how it can be perfected upon its existing methodology in terms of it being optimal.
Just grab one and everything
Now,
is at your fingertips.
we all know what it's like to work with tools. So when you have worked with a tool, and then you logically are able to deduce how you could use a better tool, you are understanding how a methodology that is currently in place using a more primitive form of technology, or really anything, for example, that is being done, your logical analysis allows you to understand what you are observing, to understand how to do it better, or if it's just being done wrong, altogether. Mathematical intelligence, on being able to understand the relationship that numbers have with each other and how they correspond towards allowing for an understanding of how reality can be perceived as well as communicated with numbers. Here you can see Einstein, and he is working on his equation E equals mc squared. Einstein had a brilliant mind in where he was able to understand the relationship with numbers and was effectively able to communicate it with other people with his famous equation E equals mc squared. EQ, emotional quota. The understanding of how emotions can either amplify or de-amplify the method of communication between beings, and how emotions can have a chain reaction, where emotions can lead to other emotions when the amplification or de-amplification of the emotion currently being expressed then leads to the next emotion when it becomes overwhelmed by amplification or subsides from de-amplification. Now, interpersonal intelligence as well as intrapersonal intelligence kind of work very well with EQ. Interpersonal is the measure of one's recognition of how another being behaves or conducts themselves, as well as being able to understand how well they know the being by being able to predict with accuracy what they will do before doing it. Intrapersonal intelligence is the knowledge of the self being measured by how well a being knows themselves, and knowing themselves so well they know when to not be their usual self and knowing how to be a higher version of themselves. Now, we're all familiar with the movie Lord of the Rings. In this scene, you will see Frodo is being heavily traumatized by what he is seeing and going into a very high state of fear and anxiety. Sam comes to his aid, knowing Frodo very well and knowing he needs help. Frodo then is obviously very agitated, as he is in a very mad state of mind, where he is unable to see his friend the way he normally does. But you can see that Sam remains very calm, and that calming effect of Sam with that human quality of form of compassion towards Frodo allows Frodo to come from an agitated state towards understanding he is doing something wrong, and then drops the sword.
I can't do this, Sam. I know. It's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here.
You can see how Sam is doing very well to seek to understand how Frodo is doing.
We are.
Now, let's say you're a customer service person when an angry customer comes in. If you get angry when they came in angry, you're actually going to amplify their anger. And when you're angry and they came in angry, yes, you are now going to be making them furious, as your anger has amplified their anger to make them furious. Now let's say you are neutral when the angry customer comes in, and you decide to take a different approach. Now you become understanding towards the angry customer, and as they are angry towards you and you choose to be understanding, you are effectively de-amplifying their anger. With your understanding nature, you then turn their anger to calm, and they calm down. As when you listen and understand them, they calm down. By then validating what they have told you their problem is, their calm will turn to content, as they will feel that they are being understood. By seeking to resolve, you're now turning their contentness to appreciation, as they feel appreciated when you are seeking to resolve why they were angry. You then remain positive and optimistic, and you have turned the customer into a happy, satisfied customer. As when you did everything you did, you turn an angry person into a happy person. CQ, creative quota, the measure of a being's ability to manifest something that is unique to themselves. This is a time lapse of a painter who is making an original painting from a blank canvas. Now this is all being sped up quite a bit, but you can see that he has started with nothing. And as he continues to work, he is making something unique to himself that is of his own unique creation. Thus, he has a very high creative intelligence. HQ, homeostasis quota, is a being's awareness and recognition being measured in the ability to understand how their body vessel, working towards the balance of chemical reactions in their body, can be interpreted to allow for the understanding on how to best assist with the balance when taking into consideration where the being's body currently is and how the surrounding environment can best suit the balance of the body in achieving balance in an optimal manner. So you have to save your wife at the top of a mountain and you're really hungry. With a low HQ, you would rush up the mountain and collapse from exhaustion, not being aware of your body's needs and not save your wife. Oh no! Having a high HQ, you would know you need to eat some food and bring water and dress for the quest. Spatial reasoning intelligence is the measure of a being's understanding of how dimensions like length, width, and height with an object, and being able to understand how these dimensions will correlate with other objects they are aware of. Driving semi-trucks is no easy task, and being able to drive a vehicle that is much bigger than yourself with accuracy and precision is a massive sign of a very good spatial reasoning intelligence. Here you can see a man with a forklift that is going now carrying some pallets through an obstacle course. This is another example of spatial reasoning intelligence. As you can see, he is gliding through. In this example, a race car driver is driving a car up a hill on a road. And when you're traveling at these kinds of high speeds, your spatial reasoning intelligence needs to be through the roof in order to be able to be doing what is being done here. Now, as you can see in this aerial video, when these guys are flying at such close proximity to other objects, their spatial reasoning intelligence is very high. Here are some Blue Angels from the American military. And you can see that when they are all flying so close together, that if their spatial reasoning was not as good as it is, as you can see the way that they fly these planes, they would not be able to perform what they are doing right now. Thus, this is another great example of spatial reasoning intelligence. RTMQ is the measure of a being's understanding on how rhythm correlates with time in terms of spacing and the understanding of the relationship and being able to identify a rhythm when being able to properly associate it with time intervals. Drumming is a great example of heightening your rhythmic intelligence, as it requires a massive amount of precision in the understanding of how to hit the drums with time intervals in a rhythmic manner that takes a lot of skill. This man's rhythmic intelligence is very high. As you can see, he is being able to perform many different rhythms with much precision. Now, we probably know the game Dance Dance Revolution. You can see that this person right here is able to perform Dance Dance Revolution in a superior manner, when really his rhythmic intelligence is through the roof. Being able to perform these rhythms in the way that he is able to is a sign that he has a very, very high rhythmic intelligence. Memory intelligence is the measure of a being's ability to memorize anything that the five senses can sense and be able to recognize the sights, sounds, tastes, smells, and touch of what exactly these particular things being sensed are. For example, when you have smelt a rose in the past and being in an empty room with no roses, but the smell of a rose comes into the empty room, being able to know the smell is a rose simply from memorizing the smell from before is having a good memory intelligence. Existentialist intelligence is the measure of a being's ability to be able to do anything that has never been taught to them from anything else. Therefore, what the being does is simply a measure of how it is entirely unique and has been done by the being's own means with absolutely no outside influence outside of their own self. Like the very first alphabet, when you had no prior information of any written form of communication before you made the alphabet. Estimational intelligence is the measure of a being's ability to determine where things are and where they will go by assessing the variables of what is going on when the estimation takes place. Here, a disc golfer must estimate how far and what angle to throw the disc to get it into a basket very far away. You can see that he is putting a bend on it so that it curves right with the understanding it will fade left at the end and go in the basket. Why not estimate for yourself when you think the car in the distance will reach the crosswalk? Here we're zooming in to where the car would be so you can get a good understanding of how far away it is. Now you have to get an idea of the speed. Try estimating how many seconds it will take the car to reach the crosswalk. By the way, it slows down. Was your estimation close to 10 seconds? Don't worry about whether you were close or not in your estimation. Practice makes perfect. CCQ is clever comical intelligence, the measure of a being's ability to be able to effectively understand their surroundings while employing their efforts towards influencing their surroundings in a manner that alters how their surroundings change based off of how they conduct themselves. For example, if there was a natural disaster and the being was able to employ their efforts towards drastically altering the natural disaster to mitigate the effects, they would have a very high CCQ. Another example would be a comedian that would understand how their clever remarks that take a somber group of people and make them laugh would likewise be an example of a high CCQ. As to alter the states of a somber group of people towards becoming a group of people that are laughing is no easy task. Thus, the clever comical intelligence allows them to alter the state of their surroundings with their influence having a major impact on the state in terms of altering what it was before and what it became after they employed their CCQ. Remember, a sense of humor is a sign of intelligence.
Oh, Diane!
How are you?
Good, good.
How long has it been?
Since college.
Huh. I've been seeing you on TV. You're doing great.
Yeah, plugging along.
You know, I got the alumni magazine. Whatever happened to your friend George? I notice I never see his name in there.
Well, he's kind of modest.
He was always such a goof off. I mean, did he ever get anywhere?
Sure.
Yeah? What field?
Marine biology.
George is a marine biologist?
Yeah, pretty damn good one, too.
I can't believe it. I would never have thought.
Yeah, he's specializing in whales. He's working on lowering the cholesterol level in whales. All that blubber. It's quite unhealthy. You know, it's the largest mammal on Earth, but as George says, they don't have to be.
Notice how the woman Diane sees George as a goofball, but when Jerry drastically alters her state of mind by what he says about George, yeah, he has a high CCQ. Now, it's not about it being a lie. It's about the fact that Jerry has employed a high CCQ by altering the state of his surroundings by his clever conduct. And hey, it's funny.
Your parents must be so proud of you, George.
Oh, they're busting.
What are those people doing over there? What's going on over here?
There's a beached whale. She's dying.
Is anyone here a marine biologist?
Save the whale, George. For me.
So I started to walk into the water. I won't lie to you, boys. I was terrified. But I pressed on. And as I made my way past the breakers, a strange calm came over me. I don't know if it was divine intervention or the kinship of all living things, but I tell you, Jerry, at that moment, I was a marine biologist.
George, I've just been reading this thing in the paper. It's unbelievable.
I know, I was just telling them the story.
Well, come on, George, finish the story.
The sea was angry that day, my friends. Like an old man trying to send back soup in a deli. I got about 50 feet out, and suddenly, the great beast appeared before me. I tell you, he was 10 stories high if he was a foot. As if sensing my presence, he let out a great bellow. I said, "Easy, big fella." And then, as I watched him struggling, I realized that something was obstructing its breathing. From where I was standing, I could see directly into the eye of the great fish.
Mammal.
Whatever.
Hey, what did you do next?
Well, then, from out of nowhere, a huge tidal wave lifted me, tossed me like a cork, and I found myself right on top of him, face to face with the blowhole. I could barely see from the waves crashing down upon me, but I knew something was there. So I reached my hand in, felt around, and pulled out the obstruction.
As the story develops, you can see how clever the story is put together when the events that transpire are all interconnected and the relations between the actors are deeply altered by the high CCQ of how the actors alter the states of other actors. Jerry altering the woman and then George altering the woman's state by cleverly playing the part, as well as George's high CCQ when he tells the others in the cafe about the story, you can clearly see how much he alters their states of mind with his delivery of conduct. And it really is very comical, which requires a clever mind to put a story like this together. Depth perception quota. The measure of a being's ability to understand how the depth of what they perceive allows them to correlate the understanding of what they perceive to be like in terms of all the different aspects of depth they could be perceiving it in. A 3D field of all possible angles based off of only one depth of perception from one given point of perception. For example, when seeing the moon from the planet Atlas, by seeing the moon very far away only once, the higher DPQ would be the understanding of what the moon would look like at any distance or any angle relative to your sight. AQ, angelic quota, the measure of a being's ability to do what is morally and ethically wholesome, with the higher quota being the measurement of how large of an effect it has on a vast amount of beings, and a lower quota, what is basically for themselves. What is wholesome for every being in the entire universe would be the highest. An example of a good AQ is when a man sees a homeless person, for example, and knowing he has already taken care of himself, takes action to take care of the homeless person. He then takes them to Value Village and buys them some clothes. He takes them to the Subway and buys them a sandwich, and while they sit down at Subway, he talks to them and helps them develop a resume. He then takes them down to a restaurant and helps them get a job as a dishwasher. He then helps the person understand how to budget, apply for an apartment, and the homeless person after has a job and a place to live, and the man put his efforts towards empowering the homeless person to understand how to take care of themselves. Give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. A low AQ would be another example when there is a homeless person sitting down by the front doors of a Safeway grocery store. A man walks by and sees that the homeless person is showing signs of mental and physical deterioration, and that the homeless person barely has any conception of reality, being very dazed, confused, as well as delirious. The man gives the homeless person $20, thinking he is doing something angelic for the homeless person. After the homeless person receives the $20, they go into Safeway and buy $20 worth of mouthwash with alcohol. They then go back outside the grocery store and drink all the mouthwash and further deteriorate their physical and mental being to the point that they need to become hospitalized and their stomach pumped for alcohol poisoning. Although we think sometimes we are being kind and angelic to others, when we fail to see how the aftermath of our actions becomes a series of events that follows with heavy ramifications, our kindness is not kindness at all. The first example where the homeless person was empowered to take care of themselves through education was great, but the second example empowered the person to have the means to deteriorate their body and mind to the point of poisoning themselves. Thus, the empowerment that educates towards empowering people to help themselves is an example of a good AQ, and empowering others to give them the means to destroy themselves or others is a very low AQ. VQ is vibrational intelligence, aka the sixth sense. The measure of a being's ability to be able to sense a premonition of what will happen without any of their other five senses being used to understand the premonition. Thus, it is their sense of vibrations that allows for the understanding of how to preconceive events that will transpire before they happen when their sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste were not able to detect them. For example, Spider-Man feels his spidey sense tingling, and he knows that through his sensitivity to being aware of the vibrations in his surroundings, he's able to deduce and preconceive his understanding of something that will happen before it happens.
Wow, great reflexes.
Watch Spider-Man's eyes. You can see that he knows something is going to happen, and without even seeing the car behind him, he is already springing into action. This is an example of vibrational intelligence. In the next scene, Spider-Man is very far away from what he feels is happening, which is an example of a higher vibrational intelligence. Here you can see that Gwen Stacy is in a lot of trouble. But Superman is not right beside her. He is actually quite far away, as his vibrational intelligence would be higher because he is further away from what he understands is going on. This is an example of a higher vibrational intelligence. Here are some real-world examples. As hey, that's the movies. Watch this dog go into a state where the owner doesn't really know what's going on, but then realizes the dog has a sense of something that's going to happen and acts in accordance before it even happens. This dog knows what something is going to happen and literally knows that it's disobeying the owner, but knows why. You see how the dogs have a preconception of knowing something will happen and they act upon it before it happens? Vibrational intelligence. Have you ever heard a mother tell a story of how they somehow knew when their child was in trouble, even when the child was not with the mother when they knew? It happens. This is a sign of a very high vibrational intelligence. All of the intelligences tie into each other, as the best way to strengthen any of the intelligences is to effectively understand the relationship between all of them. Making other intelligence higher is to boost them all by understanding they all complement each other. Thus, it is logical to understand that to have a very high quota in an intelligence is to have a high intelligence in them all. Can you think of another intelligence that was not covered in this video? I purposely did not include two that I know of already that are not in this video. It may not be an intelligence you are thinking of, but regardless, this is an open discussion topic. Feel free to voice your ideas. Peace. Remember, this is a video that exercises the fair use policy for the means of education. Do not use other people's media like I have unless you understand I am able to do this, as the fair use policy allows me to use other people's media as the purpose is for education and education only. No monetary gain can come from this video. Thanks for watching.